Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace, hanging out in my sister's basement. Now, I'm hanging out here because my sister is a phenomenal equestrian photographer. She does all kinds of portraits on location. She's usually outside shooting, but in the winter, she likes to play and experiment and do things in her small home studio. Now, her home studio is pretty much like a lot of people's studio. It's very small. Hers is in her basement. Yours might be in your garage or your spare bedroom, something like that. And so what we're going to try to do here is I'm going to take the challenge of using this very small space and shooting a portrait that doesn't look like it's been shot in a small space. I'm going to use very small and extremely close lights to make this small space look different. So let me show you exactly what we have going on here. I have two lights. I've got two Profoto lights. Now you could use anything. You could use speed lights, Profoto lights, Elinchrom lights. It doesn't really matter. It's the principles that matter. We're going to be using the inverse square law, and we're going to be using lens flare to make things look really cool, and some post-production tricks. Hang on, we got a lot to show you. So first, let me show you these lights. I have just a standard Profoto head, and this is a standard reflector. We're going to use this light to give us a more expansive look by blasting in some light into our lens to give us lens flare and to mask the small space. The second thing we have is a small Octabox. You can use a small softbox, you could use an umbrella, doesn't matter, we just need a soft source of light. We want to keep it small because we're just going to be shooting a portrait really close and tight. The other thing that I've done here is I want to mask this back wall. So I've decided and I've chosen to use a black backdrop, and that is going to make everything fall into darkness because we're going to shoot everything at a sync speed of 200th of a second. We're going to shoot with a wide open aperture though at about 2.8, 3.4, something like that. And so we still will pick up a little tiny bit of ambient light because we're shooting with video lights here. And so to make sure we drop out that ambient light, we're using a black background. That's a lot of stuff. So let's get to it by setting up our camera and starting with that lens flare. We're going to keep things simple by doing one thing at a time. The first thing that I want to do is make sure I have some beautiful lens flare in my photo. That's going to mask the small space, make it look a little bit more expansive, and we can play in post-production to make that a little bit more pronounced or less pronounced. We can shift colors. It's really a fun thing to do later on. But how do we do it? Well, I'm going to be using this, just a standard head. So this is a Profoto light with a normal reflector on it. You can use a speed light or whatever, like I mentioned before. But I have this reflector here because I really want to make sure I get a lot of light right into the lens. I want to throw it right in there, and I don't want a lot of light bouncing around in this very small space. So I have this reflector that's really refining where the light is going. I want it to go right down the barrel of my lens. So to do that, I'm going to take my camera here. This is a Canon 5D Mark IV, and I'm going to set it up pretty much on axis. So when I'm looking in the frame of my camera, I want that light, this light right here, to just show up in the very top right corner, just right off frame. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just sort of move things around, looking through my lens. I think I have it just about right. I'll take a test shot, and yes, I have some beautiful lens flare. So that's all streaming in. Now that I have it in pretty much the place that I need it, I can make fine adjustments when my model comes to make sure that I have it exactly where I want. But the first step is to make sure you have an on-axis light to shoot into your lens to give you beautiful lens flare. Now that we have our lens flare dialed in, at least at a basic level, the next thing we need to do is get our fill light. So when our model gets here, we're going to have him sitting this way, extremely close to this light. And because this light is shooting into our lens to create lens flare, we need to make sure that we even out the lighting on the model. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab this small beauty dish right here. I'm going to try not to knock over any of my sister's stuff. And we're going to put it extremely close. So I said this was going to be very small and extremely close, but these two lights are almost touching, and then when our model comes, he will be sitting about right here. So really close to the camera, really close to the light, really close to the softbox, but when we put everything together, you'll see that it doesn't look extremely small and extremely close. All right, now we have a model. This is Danny. He is from Valencia, Spain. He doesn't speak any English. I barely speak any Spanish, but we're going to make it work. So the first thing we want to do is keep things simple. We want to work with that lens flare to make sure that Danny is in the right position. We're not getting anything that's overexposed, and we're still getting that really nice flare on the image. So what we need to do here is I'm going to place Danny about right here. I'm gonna look through the lens to see if he is in position. So I need to move my camera up just a hair. I'm gonna move you back just a little bit. We're really, really close. We're about 2 feet from the camera. I'm using a 35mm prime, which is something that you probably wouldn't use for a portrait, but we're gonna make it work. All right, so the first photo here that I'm going to take is just a little test. And we can see by that image, Danny is too close to the camera. We're getting spill from this light on his face, and it's just a little bit too close to the lens. So what I'm gonna do here is pull you back just a hair, just like that. And we're gonna shoot again. This is a nice profile shot. Ah, yeah. So we have the lens flare. Everything's looking good. We're not getting any spill onto Danny. We are getting some illumination from this light, but it's underexposed, and Danny's face is flat. There's no light forming, no shaping to that. We need to add some side light, some soft side light. That's where this light comes in. And what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna grab my little light meter. I'm gonna turn this light on. I'm illuminating Danny's face from the side. I have my lumisphere down because I want to sort of see exactly what's coming from this light. We're shooting at about 3.2, shallow depth of field, which is something that we're doing specifically to make our lens flare look a little bit softer and more bocalicious. So let's meter this and see where we are. So I've got my little light meter here. I've set everything up to match my camera. And now let's meter this. It meters at 2.5. I'm shooting at 3.2, so let me put my lumisphere up to see if the mix between these two lights gets us there. So I'm gonna meter one more time. And we're right about there. So what I need to do now is take a couple of test shots to see how things look. So Danny's looking right at the camera there at the softbox, looking very manly. That looks pretty cool. So now that we have things dialed in, what we need to do is start playing with things, adding a hat, adding different gestures, making him look a little bit angry, making him look more cowboyish, I don't know. We'll try some rugged things and play a little bit, choose the best one, and hop over into post-production. So let's shoot right now. I'm in Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Classic, and you can see here's one of the images I just shot. And it's just nothing to look at right out of the camera, but that's cool because there are a lot of things that we can do in post-production. So let's hop over into the develop module. The very first thing that I'm going to want to do is to take my blacks and just take them way down. That helps really mask that background. You can see it's sort of gotten rid of this area here and make it look like it's part of the lens flare, even though it's actually part of the wall. So we're just gonna really take those blacks a little bit down. The other thing that we're gonna do here, and you can do anything you want really with your images, but we're gonna play with our color profile. So I'm gonna click on profile and I'm going to browse. And you can see if as you hover over these, that it really dramatically changes the way that the image looks. So I'm just going to choose one of these. I'm going to choose Artistic 7 because it looks sort of like that cowboy look that we're going for. I'm going to close that. The other thing I'm going to do here is to add some texture. I want this to be really nice and grungy, and we've got a lot of texture in Danny's beard. So I'll just go over here to the presence and click on the texture slider and just pull that over until we start getting some gritty texture. So I'm overdoing it, but that's okay. That's what we want with these images. So you can just play with this and do all kinds of stuff. You can change, maybe do some vignetting. You can do some split toning. Take the shadows. One of the tricks you can do here is to put some blues in the shadows, just a little bit or a lot. You can do almost anything you want with these images. I'm going to take it about where it is right here. I'm not going to play too much with that, but I'm going to take this next and I'm going to go into Photoshop. Now that we're in Photoshop, what I really want to do is use my Nik Collection filters. So I'm going to go to Nik Collection Analog Effects Pro 2. Now this is not required, but I like what I can do in Analog Effects Pro. Inside Analog Effects Pro, there are all these different custom cameras that I've created. One of them is called Danny Bokeh. And so what this filter does is it does two things. One, it adds a film type to add some grain to the image. And the other thing is this bokeh. And so this is an artificial bokeh. If I go here, you can see where I'm affecting the image. And really what I want to do is I want to add this artificial bokeh to his shoulder and to this lens flare. Again, this is something that's just a purely artistic choice, but I like it. And so I'm going to hit OK and apply that to my Photoshop image. I can turn this layer on and off, and you can see that it makes a pretty big difference. If I go in 100%, you can see that all this film grain has been added to this, and that is from Analog Effects. I really like that. So the last thing I'm going to do here is one of my favorite tricks to add a little bit of punch to contrasty images, and that is to duplicate the top layer. So that's Analog Effects Pro. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and then I'm going to choose my High Pass Filter. And this is going to allow me to choose a radius, in other words, how much of this filter that I want to really add punch to this. So the trick is to look at your image and to make this radius as low as possible. You just want to see the hairs and the fine details showing up in this gray. If you're getting more than that, you've gone too far. So for this image, it's about 1.3 pixels. Then I'm going to hit OK. And the next thing I'm going to do is go over here to my blending mode, and I'm going to make this an overlay. And again, if I go into 100%, you can see, specifically on Danny's skin and the beard, if I turn this on and off, that just over sharpens everything, but in a controlled way. You might not be able to see this on YouTube, but trust me, if you do this on your own image, you will see that really pop. Now I'm going to save this and we'll hop back over into Lightroom. Now we're back into the Develop module with the Photoshop image. Really the only thing I want to do to this is do a crop. I'm going to crop this in Lightroom because it's non-destructive. I can always change the crop later. I don't like how modern his shirt looks. And I also want this to be a 16:9 aspect ratio so it matches the video. So I'll do this. I'll offset him to the left just a little bit. Something about like that. Once I play with it a little bit, we'll look and see the final results. Well, that's all there is to it. A little bit of creative lighting in a small space with some creative post-production, and you can make your small space look a little bit more expansive. Thank you so much, Danny. That was really fun. Don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm always posting behind-the-scenes videos and pictures of what I'm filming and my travels around the world, so don't miss that. Also, click on subscribe. You want to subscribe to Adorama TV. It's free, and make sure you turn on the bell so you get notifications. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you again next time.